Good morning. Happy Friday. I don't think I gave the best explanation yesterday for experts and how and why you should rely on them and not try to substitute your own understanding for theirs or believe that Google is going to give you an expert understanding. First, let me state the obvious. Experts often disagree with each other. From my experience, you get in any lawsuit at least 3 lawyers. 3 experts. You have the plaintiff, you have the defendant, you have the judge. All trained professionals, all experts. And oftentimes, as we've seen in various filings, including in the order that was most recently issued in DMA versus fraud or troll, you had the plaintiff's understanding of the issue and his arguments. You had the defendant's understanding of the issue and his arguments. And then you had the judge's understanding of the issue, which is, in this situation, really the only one that matters, who raised different issues than what the plaintiff raised or what the defendant raised, and gave its own understanding of the law and how the law applied to the facts. So 3 experts, 3 opinions. Okay. Now, let's go to doctors. A commenter raised the issue of the recent pandemic and said, you can't trust doctors. How could you say trust doctors? Well, let me explain what actually happened and why his understanding is wrong. There were experts on both sides of that issue. Some saying X, some saying Y. Pick a topic of the issue. There were experts on both sides. At best, your understanding of which side is right or which side is wrong is based on what the experts told you, either directly or through online commentators. You didn't go out and do any of the studies, any of the lab tests. You didn't look at the statistics. At best, you got someone else's compilation or understanding of those things, and all you can do is regurgitate it as best you understand it. And as we can see from comments in the comment section, people who aren't experts and just regurgitate things don't have the understanding to back up those claims, so they just make the assertions, right? When I was covering the DeCastro versus Abrams case, it was super popular. Everybody was tuning in to see me go over line by line on those issues. And I found it humorous to go to other channels that were covering it, because I know they were just watching me and then regurgitating what I said as best they understood it and could remember it during their live streams. And it was very humorous because you could see them regurgitating the things I said, or a close approximation thereof, without any of the understanding. They couldn't address the questions raised in their chat about it. They had, like, you could see slight inconsistencies with what I said without any real basis for it, using the wrong words. I found it hilarious. In fact, a couple times I would delay my covering of various filings and then just tune into those same channels and watch them try to bumble their way through everything. And I found that to be hilarious. That's probably a failing on my part, but I found it to be hilarious. Excuse me, is that the pandemic? So, when you go to Google or you use AI to summarize, you're getting a filtering of expert opinions. Doesn't mean they're right, doesn't mean they're wrong, but you're getting a filtering of them. But that doesn't mean you're getting an understanding of them. And, just to warn people, Google's biased. In fact, you can see the bias because Google, Alphabet Company or whatever they're called, who owns Google and owns YouTube, YouTube yesterday deleted the commenter's comment about doctors during the pandemic because they're censoring information. So if you Google, or whatever search engine you use, most of them rely on Google. Very few of them have their own search algorithms, and even those are going to be biased. I mean, just that's human nature. There's going to be bias in there. They're going to give you results that are going to be biased. They're going to be slanted in one direction. I mean, try looking up controversial issues, and you'll get a lot of viewpoints in one direction, and maybe like 20 pages of search results later, you'll get the opposition. So if you just Google or use AI, you're going to get a biased. They've obviously built biases into AIs as well. I mean, go look it up. There, you'll see people try to break the biases by making various claims and saying that they're, X ethnicity or whatever to try to get the AI to give them what they're looking for. But you're going to get a biased result. Now in the law, you're going to get an amalgamation generally of attorneys' websites. And attorneys' websites aren't designed to give you a full understanding. They're designed to show that attorney has a particular expertise in this area and give you just enough information so that you recognize that attorney has a particular expertise in the area. Additionally, attorneys' websites are notoriously updated rarely. So an attorney might have put something up on his website in 2012 to show he was an expert in that particular area of law, that he had a knowledge of it and practiced in it. And the law could have changed since then. Statutes are updated every year. I mean, not every statute is updated every year, but every year the legislature is in session, and they write various bills that amend various statutes. In addition, new cases come out all the time. We saw that in DeCastro's criminal case. Shortly after the arrest was made, a case that was relatively on point came out that was harmful to the prosecution. But it was a new understanding of that particular statute and how it applied in an analogous situation that, so that the Google wouldn't have caught necessarily because, the way Google works. So Google isn't a substitute for actual knowledge. Google can only get you so far. In addition, one of the things that I've run into often in my practice are clients or opposing parties who use Google and AI to try to get answers, to try to find out what's going on. Instead of coming to their attorney or instead of hiring an attorney, they use Google and AI. And the problem is that unless you know enough to know what to ask and how to ask it, you're not likely going to get good results. You have to know enough to know how to prompt it. In general, Google and AI have been a disaster. I mean, as far as competency is concerned, because people think they could just Google it, get the top answer, and run with it. That's the answer. That's the truth, And it has given a lot of people a lot of false confidence in their abilities. I could just Google it. Again, it's not a substitution for actual knowledge. And, another thing is, in the law, I, an educated professional with at least 1 year of family law practice, can't make a personal injury argument without a doctor. I can't make a medical malpractice complaint without a doctor. I have to have an expert to substantiate the damages. I have to have an expert in a medical malpractice case to say whether there was a deviation in the standard of care. I have to have a doctor do that. You lose if you end up at trial without a doctor. You might think the doctor did X, Y, and Z wrong, but you're not an expert. And you could have Googled it, but you're not an expert. You have to have a doctor to say, this is what the standard of care is. This is where they deviated from the standard of care. It required these surgeries or treatments or whatever. And then you can then say, well, these cost this, and therefore my client is entitled to this. But bear in mind, there's going to be an expert on the other side who's going to say, actually, this is the standard of care, or actually this was not a deviation from the standard of care, or these treatments or procedures would have been required even if the doctor hadn't deviated from the standard of care. So again, experts can be wrong, but the difference between you and me is they have a basis in knowledge, skill, and experience to make the statement and to substantiate why they're right. And you're never going to be able to compete with them on that level. I'm not going to argue with the doctor about medical issues because I'm not qualified to. And I understand I'm not qualified to. And I could Google all day long. And I might even find an expert who supports my position. But all I would be able to do is just regurgitate that expert's opinion. And the doctor might have incredibly good reasons, even better than my expert's reasons, for the basis of his opinion. Which leads me to the final thing. I brought up interpretation of Scripture, not to say that my interpretation is correct, or to say I have a good interpretation or even the right interpretation of Scripture. My interpretation of Scripture is completely meaningless because, again, I'm not an expert. I don't speak Greek or read and write it. I don't speak Hebrew or ancient Hebrew, nor can I read or write it. I haven't spent the hours going over ancient manuscripts. I haven't gone over all of the church fathers on how to interpret it, what was actually meant. Why was this word used in the English translation instead of this word? What did that particular idiom mean at that time? I don't have those answers. And no one in my comment section has those answers. My priest has those answers because he spent the time to do it. He's gone through seminary. He's done the study. He's read the church fathers. He blah, 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 right? He's qualified to do it. And my personal translation of Scripture or understanding of Scripture, interpretation of Scripture is absolutely completely immaterial. It's my church's understanding that's what matters. And that's what I have to, as an Eastern Orthodox Christian, I have to go by their interpretation. I also don't intend for this channel to become an Eastern Orthodox apologist channel. I have not asked for, nor have I received blessing from my bishop to teach on Eastern Orthodoxy. So don't come into my comment section and try to engage me on it. You're going to get short answers, talk to a priest, whatever. But it's not my role. I'm not an expert at it. I know my limitations. Just like I don't opine really on the copyright portions of DMA versus fraud control because I know I'm not qualified to. I could Google the answers. I could do the research. I could possibly become an expert on it because I have the underlying skill and experience as an attorney to be able to read and understand these things. But I know it would take me time to do the research, to read all the case law on it, to figure out why this case is interpreted like this instead of like this. Because even lawyers, I can't tell you the number of times where I've seen a case held for a proposition and I'm like, where does it say that in there? And it takes a long time to figure out why the courts are citing this particular case for a particular proposition that doesn't appear right out in the open, even to a trained practicing attorney. And so what I'm trying to say is even experts have to be humble and realize that they're not experts in certain fields. I remember I used to watch a lot of atheist channels, and one of those was Thunderfoot. And now Thunderfoot is an expert in science. He's got chemistry and physics degrees, like PhDs in one or both. The guy knows science, especially that area of science. And he probably knows enough from that area of science to have a reasonable degree of expert opinion on other areas of science in that general range. And I remember when the 2020 pandemic came around, he was making a lot of predictions. And I'm like, I've seen actual doctors who are giving wildly different predictions. He had hubris, just like some of the commenters in my comment section. He thought he knew more than he did, and his wild predictions didn't pan out. You have to realize your limitations. And if you're not capable of doing that, that's fine. Comment in the comment section. You'll get the heart. I may toy with you because sometimes that's fun to do. But that's about it. That's about it. So that's what I was trying to say yesterday. I probably said it very inartfully, but Google is not a substitution for actual knowledge. Google is not a substitution for actual experience. Google is not a substitution for actual skill. And last but not least, anytime you do more than paste the exact words of something, you're interpreting it. If you use different words, you've interpreted it. If you say what it means, you've interpreted it. That's interpretation. Interpretation is taking this section of words and applying it and saying what it means and rephrasing it using what you think are synonyms. And if you don't have a grasp of legal terminology, it's very apparent. Trust me, I see it. It's very apparent. You didn't get slap damages. Like what or a slap award. What the hell's a slap award? I understand what a slap is, a strategic lawsuit against public participation. I know what award is, but what kind of award? And there's no such thing as a slap award. Attorney's fees for an anti-slap motion that you prevailed on, i.e. prevailing party attorney's fees for a slap motion, anti-slap motion. I understand what those are, but I don't know what a slap award is. If you don't even know the terminology, you probably shouldn't be interpreting legal orders, case law, anything like that. Another funny thing is someone saying, I thought I saw the citations and I thought they backed her opinion or something along those lines. And I'm like, oh yeah, really? Have you read them? No, I haven't read them. I about died. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great Friday. And if I don't talk to you over the weekend, and I probably won't, have a great weekend too.